taking a page from LJN and producing a retro-inspired loyal leader. Here's your look at the brand new NECA Toys, Dungeons & Dragons 50th Anniversary Strongheart, the Good Paladin. Strongheart is a fearless seeker of justice, risking his life to ensure that good triumphs over evil. He is thoughtful, kind, and seldom rash, but yet never hesitant to punish those that spit in the face of law and order. Strongheart doesn't worship a god, but devotes himself to an ideal, that the world can be spared from evil by those that have enough courage to stand against it. He prefers to fight with his trusty sword steel, and aims to capture and imprison evildoers, slaying them only if they cannot be apprehended. Stopping evil as early back as 1983, just before, of course, we get a closer look at the 50th Anniversary Dungeons & Dragons Strongheart. I'd like, if I can, to thank the folks over at NECA that provided this sample we could have a look at. Quoting 1983 because that's when LGN first produced the Dungeons & Dragons figures, in which this color scheme of Strongheart is based on. There was also an ultimate version of Strongheart. Haven't had the chance yet to have a look at that figure, but we're going to kind of do things backwards this time, looking, though, at the retro version of him first. The figure, though, if you include the feather on the top of his helmet, he's actually standing at 8 inches in height. Or retro version of Strongheart is 20 centimeters tall. Sporting more ultimate colors, though, here's what Strongheart looks like along with both Warduke and Elkhorn. Both of the figures booked in on either side of Strongheart actually are more from the Ultimates version of Dungeons & Dragons, so their metallic finishes are a little bit more apparent. There is also as well LJN 50th Anniversary versions of Warduke and also Elkhorn. We will be looking those in upcoming reviews. There's also as well Zarek, making up, I think, the only 4 figures we're getting from the 50th Anniversary line. Packing much lighter is the 50th Anniversary Strongheart. He doesn't have the accessory count that the Ultimate version of him had. The Ultimate had, for example, some interchangeable hands, a shield, and a hammer. He trims it back a bit by only having then the sheath, the dagger, and the sword. First, though, looking at the sheath, it's been molded here in black plastic, but what's unfortunately missing, though, is all the additional accents, because, of course, it's supposed to be based on the retro figure of him. This does sheath on the side of actually his skirting, but just before we do that, I want to show you guys what it looks like there on the other side. There is also a little storage section here to store the dagger, one of his only other included accessories. The dagger is a little thin on plastic, very, very bendable. It's molded, though, as you can see, in dark gray with some additional black added here to the handle. It holsters on the side, so you're basically going to first put that and just sheath it on the side of the larger sheath. When you're putting this in, I noticed there was a little bit of a struggle, and when you even actually put it in, it looks like it bends just a little bit. Before you actually put the sword in, one thing I did also want to show you is the way that this stores on the side of his body. Normally, you would have taken the sheath, for example, and slide it down this way. But then you have to fight it around the additional section that stores the dagger. I actually find it's easier if you take it and loop it from the front. Then it actually sits comfortably with it not going anywhere, and then you don't have to worry about fighting it around the additional section that holds, again, the dagger. While that's in place, the figure also comes included with his trusty sword, steel. Why not? Tough time getting that out. The plastic, again, is very much dark gray, very, very thin and bendable. Nicely, again, painted. They've done on the handle there, adding some additional wrappings there of black. And again, you can either sheath that on the side, or he does also have provided gripping hands on either sides of his forearms. You can have the figure holding it that way as well. Just to show you what it looks like, though, you just take the sword and sheath it into the side here. Slide it in place, and it holds, again, quite well. Maybe what we'll do, though, right now is we're just going to take the sword out, take the sheath out. We're just going to put it off to the side, just because I know getting to the articulations on the figure is going to be a little bit harder if I have to contend with a blasted sword in the way. Closer look, closer inspections, though, of Strongheart, we get still yielded a nice looking figure. It is pretty close to pretty much the Ultimate version, although the paint is a little bit pulled back a bit. You see a lot more of it, though, when we look at the skirting. Now, this will be even more apparent when we eventually look at the Ultimate version of him. Again, I'm kind of doing this a little bit backwards here. The original skirting of the Ultimate had more use of a metallic blue here. We get basically more of a pastel baby blue this time around, and it doesn't also have the additional trim that the Ultimate version would have as well. From the armor standpoint, it looks about the same. Some of the things that he left off, for example, is the additional paint that they've added here for the lion. They've kind of just kept that more to the basic blue. They've also added, again, some blue in there on the sides. So again, like, it's more cosmetic changes than anything else. Like, from a head sculpt standpoint, it looks to be the same from the Ultimate version. One thing I really like, though, about Strongheart is it does actually have a closing visor there on the front of his helmet. Closes down to, of course, not only cover the front of his face, but also as well gives him one functionality to the figure that I really was really happy to see. Now, also as well, that this does have a hinge, so you will want to be careful when you are moving this up and down. That, obviously you're not putting too much pressure against this, but it does open and close generally quite easily, actually. It does have the feather also on the back of his head. Some nice additional wings there, sculpted nicely there on the side. Depending on really how you want to have the figure displayed. If I do eventually get my hands, I'd like to really still get my hands on the ultimate version of Strongheart. What I think I might just end up doing is having one figure displayed with the visor down, and then have the ultimate version likely with the visor up. Head sculpt looks good. A very nice Tom Selleck style of mustache with matching eyebrows there on the top as well. The colors, I think, are a little bit darker than the face that he would have on the Ultimate. I think the Ultimate has him maybe a little bit lighter than what we get here, but still a nice looking head sculpt for Strongheart. One thing I really also like about this figure, I don't think is that far different from the Ultimate release, is the way they've styled the cape. I think the original one also had a fabric cape, if memory serves me correctly. Or was it sculpted? I'm going to have to go back and look at that. One thing they've done, though, differently to kind of inspire this based on the LJN designs is that they gave him a fabric cape. Kind of looking at it, looks a little bit like a sponge. Not from the sense that it's going to absorb water, but when you look at it from a distance, it kind of has like a sponge-like material look to it. It doesn't have as much give. I mean, it obviously is fabric, so it can drape around a little bit more than a sculpted plastic cape. But like it doesn't, like, it's very boxy, very, very boxy on the back of his body. I do like the way it has a little bit of a glitter look to it, though. It's a really nice looking cape. But again, like, it's pretty much still the Ultimate version of Strongheart, just pulled back on the colors and kept the colors a little bit more primary. But the sculpting on it is still really quite good. You got the chainmail there all across both his arms and the lower legs there as well. He's got a skirting there on the front. They've now added some additional, well, the original figure also would have had this too, some splits on the side. So when we get down to the articulation on the figure, not limited at all when you decide to split the legs for Strongheart. Some nice sculpting again down below here for the knees that kind of match in a way the way they've sculpted the wings on the tops of his head. He's got these nice little wing pieces there on the backs of his knees. And he has now shinier boots, which I think the original one may have had some additional paint work that unfortunately gets again left off here for the figure. I think the first one or the original one would have had some additional blue maybe added to the boots, where now they've kind of just painted the boots all in black instead. He does have still peg holes in the bottoms of his feet. And again, like, if you had a display stand, which I don't happen to have a display stand, you probably could put this guy in some more dynamic poses. But honestly, though, Strongheart seems to stand perfectly fine. Now, for the figure's articulation, his head sculpt is going to be on a ball joint. So Strongheart allows the head, well, that ball joint for Strongheart allows the head to rotate all the way around. In addition to that, I guess you could really count the fact his visor does move up and down. So there's some posability there as well. The neck also has a secondary ball joint. If you look at behind the collar piece of the shoulder armor, he does have a ball joint there. So the head actually between the two moves quite freely, up and down, back and forth. And again, you could rotate all the way around as well. Shoulders do come out. Now, the thing about the shoulders, though, is that the way they've attached them is that they're attached actually to this part rather than the part of the shoulders. So when it comes to actually moving his arms out, I was kind of expecting for the shoulders to attach here, but pleasantly surprised to see that they actually attach them as all one piece. So moving his arms out, even though I can't quite pull off 90 degrees, you get a little less than that, just a little bit less. The arms move forward, the arms move back. There's a swivel at the bicep, single hinge in the elbow, rotation in the forearm, rotation in the hands, upper torso ball joint. Now, he actually has two ball joints. So he's got one here, but I find frequently is if I try to move one thing, it tends to move both of them at the same time. But if you hold on to his abdomen area, he's got a ball joint here on the top of his torso, and then he's got a ball joint at the base of his abdomen. Speaking of abdomens, though, look at his abdominal muscles there, really nicely sculpted. Again, he's got the splits there on the sides of his skirt, so his legs can easily hinge out this way. About full splits, you bring the legs forward, bring the legs back. There's a swivel at the top of the thigh. Double hinge this time around on the knees. He has articulation here where you can swivel the lower boots, ankle pivot back and forth, ankle rocker back and forth. And that's pretty much all the articulation that counts when it comes to Strongheart. Nice looking figure. Again, I really would have wished I could have done this figure where it was first looking at the Ultimate release, then I could have then brought in the Ultimate figure we looked at from before and comparing along with then the 50th anniversary. In a perfect world, that's what I would have liked to have done. But if you're looking at it, though, there is, again, a lot of changes, really, if you happen to have the original one, which, again, now that I think about it, the Ultimate version did, I think, have fabric for his cape. But obviously, cosmetic changes, they did pull the reins back a lot when it came to the paint. He would have had a much darker mustache, for example, much darker eyebrows. Also, he would have had, like, I believe, all blue gauntlets there on the sides. And down below the skirting, I think, is the thing that's the most apparent here on this figure, where the original would have used then metallic blue for the lower skirt and then had then it trimmed off in the silver. They kind of, again, made this more of a baby blue to match the original colors of the 1983 LJN release of Strongheart. If you were a big fan of the original figure line from LJN, a nice additional way to get the most mileage out of the mold. A nice release from the folks over at NECA Toys. Not having the Dungeons & Dragons Ultimate version of Strongheart left me at a bit of a disadvantage, because I would have liked to have been able to bring in that figure so you guys could see, face value, the differences between the two when it came to the paint. I'm not going to have a similar mistake when it comes to Warduke. Obviously, I brought in the Ultimate for comparisons here for Strongheart, but when we do eventually, though, look at the 50th anniversary of Warduke, you'll be able to clearly see the differences between the Ultimate version of the figure and then one inspired by the 1983 toy line. Again, I'm still definitely interested to get my hands, though, on the Strongheart, the Ultimate version, simply just because, again, like, if you are one that loves the paint that NECA applies to all of their Ultimate figures, there's definitely an upgrade for the Ultimates than there wasn't the case here with the Retros. The Retros obviously are very heavily influenced by the LJN line, 50th anniversary, if we can believe that. So again, like, if you're expecting the line to have the metallic finishes that, say, the Ultimates have, you might be a little bit more disappointed. But if you were a fan of growing up collecting the original 80s line from LJN, this figure line is going to be right up your alley. As already mentioned, we will be looking at Warduke in the upcoming review. So, of course, we will be bringing the Ultimate in for comparisons for that. And, of course, if you guys did also want to go back and look at my other earlier reviews of both Warduke and just recently we looked at the Elkhorn, definitely you'll be able to find them here on this channel. I'd like to thank once again the folks over at NECA Toys that did provide this sample of the 50th anniversary. I can't believe it's been that long of the Dungeons & Dragons LJN version of Strongheart. What do you guys think of this figure? Let me know down below in the comment section. Have you guys been collecting not only the Ultimates of Dungeons & Dragons, but now maybe as well collecting the 50th anniversary? Let me know what you guys have had in your collection down below in the comments. If you guys in the meantime did enjoy this video, I want to throw it a like. If you guys are loving the content you guys are seeing and want to stick around for more, if you haven't already done so, I mean, obviously, if you have, then it makes no sense for me just to say the following things and you to do the following things. But if you are new here, just stumbled onto this channel, perhaps even in the review of Strongheart, come on in. Make sure you hit that subscribe button down below and make sure you're turning on the bell notification. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.